We will call the March 13th, 2023 Juvenile Detention Center Board to order. And Ms. Todd, if you will read the roll, please, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Mayor Joe Carr,
Yes.
Judge Daniel,
Here.
Ms. Collins,
Here.
Ms. Maxwell,
Here.
Dr. McDonald.
Here.
Excellent. Has the board had an opportunity to review the minutes? And if so, are there any corrections, amendments to the minutes? If there are none, I will entertain motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
We got a motion and a second from Dr. McDonald. All those in favor of accepting the minutes say aye, please.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The minutes are adopted. We are now to public comments. Ms. Duke, do we have anybody that would like to say anything publicly?
Not that I've been made aware of.
Okay, then.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Has there any effort to publicize that we are meeting and invite public comment? Because I'm sure there's people that have interest in what we're doing and would like to know what, and have issues that we'd like to bring to our attention.
It's my understanding that it is published through the county website where they publish all the meeting notifications. So I don't know that there's
But
been
other than
any.
that, there's nothing.
I
There's
haven't.
been a couple of articles that Scott Broden has done, at least two, where he's,
Recently?
yes, there was one that came out probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, talking about when we meet and.
So I'm gonna introduce the board to Lisa Kay, who's the Public Information Officer for the county. Lisa, can you do this for us, please? Can you find out what additional things we can do to advertise the fact that the board would like to solicit and accept public comments?
Yes, Mayor Carr.
Yeah, do that, and what it is that, and then maybe we can have something going forward in review of that. Is that acceptable to the board?
Sure.
Just make sure that we're exhausting all avenues in that regard. Great. Open positions, Ms. Duke.
So we had our full-time temporary position filled, but the young man changed his mind, so we still have a full-time temporary detention officer that is open. We just filled one of our part-time educational assistants, but there is still one part-time educational assistant opening. So for a total of 2, one full-time, one part-time.
Any questions for Ms. Duke in that regard? Okay. The data report, please, ma'am.
I have provided that for you with the addition, as requested, of the ages of the young people.
Is that this attachment here?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
And so as of this morning, when this was run, there was 12 young people detained, 9 of which were Rutherford County and 3 were out of county.
You also have the ages here that's helpful to determine.
Okay. Any questions regarding the data report? And I'll be glad to give the board a few minutes to look at it.
Looks like 2 of the residents have court dates tomorrow on these serious charges. Are those transfers, or do you know what the purpose of the?
The 18-year-old is most likely a transfer hearing. It's going to be, yeah. And
Yes, it is.
and then the last one, if that's what you're talking about, the 16-year-old. Oh no, that's today. 14,
Right.
Yes. That's probably not a transfer hearing. I would say way too young.
Any other questions? Ms. Duke? Thank you for that. And now we're on to item number 6, which is the standard operating procedures discussion. Ms. Duke, we went through the changes and amendments last time, and at that point in time, we did not have a printout because they hadn't been accepted yet. What we have in front of us is the accepted SOP document as approved at the last meeting, the February meeting. And so you have that in front of you. Questions or comments for Ms. Duke?
There were a few things just a handful, I believe, of minor things that we discussed. So one of your copies that will have comments out to the side were either typographical errors that were seen and corrected, or following back up with the items that were mentioned that needed to be looked at again. And then the clean copy, or the larger print copy, is with those corrected issues, but then there may still be some things that y'all would like to look at.
Ms. Cullum,
I do have a few items,
please.
and it's mostly just typographical errors. Page 9,
Okay, so we have two binders here. You're talking about the first one?
I think the page numbers are all the same. And I think the red line copy,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
and the clean copy, I
Thank
think
you.
the page numbers are the same.
Page
So on
9.
Page 9, under 2:15 to 3 p.m., I think it ensures all paperwork should be red book,
That's correct.
not red book. Page 12, under weekly, the fourth item ensures staffing. I think that's clear, but it is a little different than one of the other listings on a different shift. I think the first shift says ensures mandatory staffing levels.
Okay.
So if
What are you proposing?
whichever one they think is
You just be
the best
consistent.
correct, yes.
Okay.
We'll
Unless
change-
there's a need to have them different.
No, I'll change that to ensures mandatory staffing levels.
Then farther down on that page, the fifth bullet from the bottom, assists with preparing photo lineups. So that's one that we missed previously. Page 15, that also says ensures staffing. So just make sure that's consistent. They're under weekly, just consistent with whatever you think is appropriate. Page 16, under 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., first bullet, second line, red book should be 2 words. Page 17,
17?
under unscheduled tasks, second bullet, assists with photo lineups. Page 66. I know we had some discussion about the definition of seclusion.
So there are two, oh,
Go ahead.
okay. There are two places where seclusion, the definition of seclusion is discussed. One of them is on page 66, and the other one is marked, but I don't have the page number written down. After
171.
After discussions with County Attorney Nick Christensen, who reviewed the most updated Westlaw definition for this section, the definition that we have now in here is the most updated DCS approved definition of seclusion that we can find.
Is that the page 66?
Yes.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, Judge, go ahead.
Shows 171 mirror 66.
Well, excellent question. That's exactly what I wanted to know.
It does, or it should, I should say.
Okay.
So we're back to an earlier issue where we want to just be consistent in the SOP.
Yes, and it's my understanding from DCS that their rules are finalized as far as they are concerned, but could still be changed by the legislature.
I haven't contacted anybody at DCS, but there are certain formalized rulemaking procedures that have to occur. And I'm going off of what's on the Westlaw and also on DCS's website where they have their rules. This definition matches that. I would think that those would be correspondingly updated, and as soon as they are, we will need to update our rules, which I don't know if Ms. Duke's recently been in contact with anybody up there to know when that's gonna be. I know that they consider their rules finalized, but until there's like the official stamp and they complete all their notice procedures, I'm not so sure they are.
So if I could add here, so what the legislature will do is, this is Government Operations Committee, but it's a joint committee of both the House and the Senate, typically, where they approve these kinds of rules and rules changes. They meet throughout the year, not just during the session. And so what I've asked Eric to, as a matter of fact, part of the reason Eric's here is when we get updates to the code that reflect changes in policy at Rutherford County, then he will alert the appropriate director that there's been an update in those definitions. So essentially, we've got something in place, Ms. Cullum, that would allow for us to know when that takes place, when it becomes effective, and when we need to respond accordingly.
And I have corresponded through email with Mr. Mark Anderson, who is the gentleman in charge. I presume he notifies you when things are
He does.
finalized. And I'm happy to forward to you his information, if that would be helpful to you.
That'd be great.
All right.
Perfect. So, yeah, from time to time, GovOps makes changes, and we just need to be aware of those changes, and Mr. Hennessy is going to help the county out with that. But in the meantime, we need to have a single definition here of seclusion, and we're going to adopt the definition in 66 to reflect that in page 171. Is that accurate?
Yes, and I believe, yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay. Sorry, Ms. Cullum.
That's it.
Those are all the changes you have?
Those are
Wow.
all the changes.
Excellent. Are there any other changes that we need to make to the SOP before adopting those changes? Hearing none, I would like to entertain a motion to adopt in a second, please.
I so move.
Okay, we have a motion and multiple seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The changes, as outlined by Ms. Cullum, have been adopted.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Since these are limited, once these are changed, these about 5 or 6 pages, would Ms. Duke just copy those pages and give them
Thank
to us so we can
Yes.
interpose those in our final draft? Because I've got
Thank you
so
very,
many versions of this that
much.
I'm confused.
Yes. No, I being one who doesn't like to just print off paper.
A lot of trees here.
Yeah, that's right. I'm a tree hugger from way back, so, yes. Unless there's an objection, Mr. Judge Dean has an excellent suggestion, so you'll just print off. Okay, yeah. Anyway, so, Dr. McDonald.
I guess to piggyback on what the judge just referenced, first I wanted to commend the staff for the time and effort that was put in this, our county attorney and our fellow board member down there. I know it was a painstaking process. One thing that would help me, and maybe others, because we got so many copies, is there a way that we can connect these pages by numbers, like 1 of 40, 1 of 41, 1 of 42, so I know some idea about what the final product would look like? There's something?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay. That would be helpful to me.
It's just changing the page number formatting at the bottom.
Okay.
I think that's pretty easy.
That's what I kind of thought. I didn't want to assume, so, thank you.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Real quick, just so I understand.
Thank you.
And it'd be helpful for your staff to understand too. So if we understand correctly, you all have now approved the SOP subject to those changes stated by this column. So Ms. Duke will make those and then she'll disseminate the other pages to you guys. But as far as everybody's concerned, we have a board approved SOP. Is that correct?
That's the understanding of the chair.
Okay.
Now,
Ms. Duke.
if we're going to change the format of the page numbers, does everybody want that new copy as well?
The chair does not need a new copy.
Okay.
I don't either. I just flip those pages.
Dr. McDonald stands alone in that request.
That's okay.
It's perfect. Are you kidding?
I just feel like I've been thrown out to the light pole.
No, we're having fun. Come on, man. It's all good, brother. All right.
It's just that, again, it's been,
Just get rid of those others and I'll have you
Yeah.
I'll print you up one and let you
Don't worry
know.
about doing the other. I can work with that. I'm good with that.
Dr. McDonald,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay.
We're glad to provide you what you need.
Okay.
They're here to help us, help them, so that's all
Yes.
good. We're now to item number 7, private act disclosure. Nick,
Yes, sir.
this is you.
So I reached out to, Mayor, help me, it's Robert Stevens, is he senator or is he a rep?
State Representative Robert Stevens.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all right.
I reached out to him last week, and the bill was starting to move its way through committee. And I haven't checked today on where it is, but they were about to introduce it in the other house as well. And so I anticipate that by the April commission meeting, we should have it back. The county commission has to ratify it. It should be by April, and if not, delays would be May.
And I took the liberty of making a copy for board members if they'd like to look at it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions about the private act before we move on?
So this changes that we would be meeting only at the courthouse. Is that the way I see it,
That's my understanding.
as opposed to here?
That's my understanding. I know one of the reasons for, was the ability for OIT to facilitate the services they need to record and broadcast the meeting. I know that was a consideration. There was also a consideration that if we did run out of space because public comments or something like that, we could actually move into the commission chambers as opposed to room 205 where we would typically be done. And so it does give us some more room and lessen the burden on Ms. Duke and her staff about accommodating us. I think that was the understanding that at least I had. All right, if no more questions about that, we'll go to item number 8. How to best keep the board apprised on education services being provided to the youth. Who placed that? Ms. Cullum, thank you.
That was my request.
Thank you.
And I know that Director Duke has provided an email from Mr. G. About what goes on, and I know you are absolutely doing everything you need to do. I would just like for us to get a report similar to what you do for the life skills.
So you want an education, okay,
Like an academic report.
And not necessarily student A took English 101, but something like this on a date. And I don't know that you need to name the instructor. I guess, there's an online teacher. But that topic, English, math, whatever it is, and maybe number of students that had that education, or if other board members have a suggestion. But this report is so great about what you do. I'd just like to see something similar for the basic education services that I know you're doing regularly.
to Pastor Mike. Okay, so we will work on that. We'll bring something next month and then tweak it till we get it just like we want it, perhaps?
And I'd like to hear from other board members if they would think if that would be helpful for them.
I think it's an excellent idea.
Same here.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good
Okay.
idea to see how we, and it's, you know, some of these young folks are gonna be here a while. See how they do. Maybe they can help themselves, and we can help them help themselves.
Okay.
Mayor stepped away, but as vice chair, I'd assume he wants me to proceed, so I'll try to do that. The next item that we have to discuss is the format of our quarterly report, which is provided to the board. And I think that's the same one that you provide to the council.
We had, in one of our first meetings, we had briefly discussed this. And best I can recall, it went along the lines of, so the private acts talked about a quarterly report. And it's my understanding that the original wording on the private act was based heavily on the private act for the Correctional Work Center. Now, I have a monthly report that I present to the Rutherford County Public Safety Committee that is multiple pages long. And I don't know if you want me to just provide that quarterly, or if you'd like to look at that on SharePoint, or if you want me to recreate something different. So
You were providing a format of a report as part of the settlement agreement, and we thought that was basically what you were doing.
Right, and that goes monthly that's presented monthly to public safety. And all of those documents are saved and posted online through the county's SharePoint. And I can bring those, I can give information on how to use SharePoint. I'll do whatever y'all would like for me to do.
But the purpose of the report was to keep the commission up to date on how we were performing in those areas that had been identified. Is that it?
So prior to the litigation, just as a public safety department, we've always reported to them monthly and given them a statistical report based on various items that they like to know about. Then, as part of that litigation, they just wanted to make sure that we didn't change anything that we were doing and continued to do that format for a period of time so that they could ensure that they were happy and were able to see those same bullet points, so to speak. So there hasn't been anything additional, and we haven't changed anything, but then just part of, as I understand, the private act mentioned quarterly, and I think it was because the Correctional Work Center does something quarterly. But as I say, we can do this whichever way y'all would like.
Okay. And there's really some reason to believe that you're right, that the act was envisioned and followed the same format as the Work Center legislation, because it had a provision in about reporting the work that the prisoners were doing, which obviously we wouldn't be doing that anyway. So what's the will of the body? I sort of took over to help you.
I asked you to, so I'm going to let you complete this item, Judge.
All right.
You're acting as chair. Thank you.
What's the will of the body on the report?
Can I just make suggestion. First of all, I watch your reports every month.
Great.
And, I mean, that's part of oversight. I would just think maybe if we got those reports that you do monthly, every 3 months, why have to reproduce all this over again?
Okay. Save those trees.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that makes, well, that's my Alabama point of reference.
The only question I would want to ask Ms. Duke is, we don't want to make different reports.
Right.
of the
I'd
same
prefer not to
information.
do that, but I will.
But what I'm asking is, would that suffice for what you're reporting as part of the litigation as well?
Yes, it already does, as
Okay,
I
so-
understand.
So you wouldn't have to be creating a new,
No, I could just package it together and
Yeah.
share that quarterly, I guess.
Yeah.
So then, when would do we want to start the quarterly? April or,
what's the normal cycle for quarterly reports?
well, I don't have
Based
to,
on the year of the county commission, which I guess ends on June 30th.
I think you can do a January, February, March, and it will fit just fine with the fiscal year.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, is there a motion from anybody on that?
Yeah, I move
Can
that.
you, Mr. Chair, can you state the motion that we're,
Motion hadn't been made yet, so.
well, can you state the recommendation that can be made in the form of a motion?
Well, it's my understanding that the recommendation is that the current report that is being made to the, is what you say, the work?
public safety.
Be the format for a report for us on a quarterly basis.
Ms. Todd, do you have that? Did you get that?
I'll go back and get it.
That if that's the case, then the chair never gets to make a motion because I'm not the chair today, or at least right now, so I'm going to make the motion. I mean, maybe the only time I get to do
Mayor's
one.
made a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Ms. Maxwell seconded, all in favor say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Appreciate that. I think we're on item number 10. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Overview of JDC budget and list of modifications to that budget for the next fiscal year. Just so the board knows, Mr. Cesar and Ms. Duke came and presented their budget to the county mayor's office and so for review. Now, just so the board knows, currently the county has a $64 million, that is with an M, dollar deficit that we inherited, and so I've asked all county departments as a starting point to come to the county with no increases in budget, and so Ms. Duke and Mr. Cesar were very accommodating in that regard. So I really appreciate this budget. This will not be the last time that we review this, okay? I want to make that very clear. The board certainly has opportunities to look at this budget, make suggestions and recommendations. It's our anticipation that we will come before the county commission prior to May, so probably within the next 6 weeks, we kind of want to have this nailed down. I think that's what Ms. Duke, we and I discussed at our meeting, but I so much appreciate what she and Mr. Cesar have done with this, and with that, I will gladly let you guys look over it and ask any questions.
Just so that y'all will understand my, what I've presented you with, you will see that there are several specific line item accounts that have little red dots to the side. Those are line items that finance generally is the one that makes the decisions on, so that's not really anything that we specifically, in this department anyway, figure. And those are all going to be line items that involve salary, Social Security, pensions, and those types of things. So if it doesn't have a little red dot, then it's either a line item that we are not currently using or one that we did ask for that current amount of money for. And then I tried to be have a decent explanation to the side when it wasn't something that was self-explanatory.
Could I ask a question on your?
Sure, let me interject real quick if I could,
Okay,
just
sure,
related
go.
to that. I wanted to add, this does not include pensions, insurance, and, is there anything else, Ms.
It
Stevenson?
doesn't do any like the, any of the taxes, the federal taxes.
Right.
And all that.
Those kind of things are not factored in just yet from
And the
Mr. Smith's
salaries.
department. Yes, ma'am. Okay, sorry.
So if there was a countywide raise for county employees, that would be in addition to what's listed here?
If the employee or the line item was affected, as an example, I've been with the county for about 30 years, so I'm maxed out. So the only time my salary would change is if they raise the table.
Right.
In and of itself. So,
Okay, but for like a sergeant?
yes, that would increase those line items.
Yeah, okay. Now, does this tell us how many, how many sergeants there are? Or
Yes, sir. It's going to be that 1, 2, 3, that fourth line down, and I have said 5 sergeants' salaries, so that they're within that number, that requested number. There are 5.
Oh, I see, on
In the
the
explanation.
far
In the-
right-hand column.
In the
I got you.
explanation, yes, sir.
Okay, I can understand that.
Ms. Stevenson?
Just to give you a better idea on the salaries, if a position is reclassified, there's a new position, a lift to the table, we have a salary survey. If the employee's eligible for a step, which Ms. Duke alluded to, that we do currently have a top range for that, any of those things will affect the salary line items. And then if the salaries get affected, it's then kind of a rolling effect for taxes and all that other kind of stuff too. If that makes sense.
Okay. One other question, and then I'll yield. On the board and committee line item, does that anticipate the approval of the
No,
legislation?
the $7,200 is just for current. Then in the event that they would increase the number of board members, and that would have to be adjusted.
Okay.
But I made a note just to kind of remind everybody that if that happens, that line item would need to be adjusted.
All right.
Any other questions? This is something that the board, after review, obviously can take up as well at the next meeting. It'll be before we meet with Ms. Duke again, so there's an opportunity. I will tell you this, Ms. Todd, or Lynn, let's go ahead and make sure this gets on the next month's agenda.
Okay.
Just to review, and if there's nothing to discuss, then we'll blow right by it. But I want to give the board members ample time to review it and ask questions without feeling obligated to do that today. Okay?
Yes.
Are there any questions for Ms. Duke on the preliminary budget? Okay, great, then we'll move on. Finally, other business. And we've got a budget transfer.
Right, this is, if you watch any of the meetings that are televised, you'll often hear the phrase, no new money. So this is no new money. This is taking $15,145 from one of our existing accounts and moving it into another account. The accounts that are affected are our contracted services. That's the one where we're able to move money from. And the reason that we're moving this is twofold. The mental health service company that we use has just been notified by TennCare that TennCare is not going to be picking up any services for insured youth that are detained in correctional facilities. So the money that once was covered under that child's medical provider, the TennCare, is no longer. So we're going to have to pick that up for the last little bit of the fiscal year. Additionally, our medical services provider is Rudd Medical, and the initial amount that we had looked at on that was from a previous contract, and it was human error that we missed our our total contracted amount on it. So this is enough money to take care of those two items without having to do anything but move money within our.
Is there a reason that TennCare is not going to cover this?
I just think it's a potential.
Can they do that?
They're doing it.
Some foolish, I mean.
It does seem foolish. I mean, they're juveniles,
Right.
and a lot of them have severe mental health issues.
Have we gotten an I'm sorry, let me finish. No, I interrupted you. Please continue.
Explanation would be nice. I mean,
Right.
flat out just doing it, no explanation.
What was the explanation, Ms. Duke? Did they provide one?
We currently use volunteer behavioral health for those services. And they contacted us, I don't know, a couple weeks ago and said, hey, we need to advise you that your next bill is going to be more than, because we do have some kids who are not on TennCare. And so if they don't have TennCare or private pay, then because it's statutorily required for us to offer those services, we do pick up some of those charges. And I have money budgeted for that. She said that your next bill that you're going to get from us is not going to be what you're used to, and the reason is because TennCare has decided they're not funding these anymore. So that's about all the information that I have on it.
Is it possible for us to get and I'm fine on the budget amendment, so the board knows. But I would, if there's a chance we can get a more detailed explanation why it appears TennCare took this somewhat bizarre action, I would like to know what it is.
Okay.
Can we do a little?
Sure.
Can we do a little digging and find out? And if it's possible for us to go back, the county go back to TennCare and retrieve or claw back some of this money, I'd like to try to do that, or your department.
Right. I also, I have slightly adjusted this account in the upcoming budget, knowing that there's some potential to.
Is this after we met?
No, it was before we met. Yeah.
One other question. So you have other contracted services here. How is this transfer going to adversely affect other contracted services?
It won't. That line item is where we, the contracted other provider that we pay out of that line item is our meal services, and that's population-based. And so I have to, the way that I budget it is with X number of potential detainees each month.
This isn't going to harm this particular.
No, because
Okay.
we haven't had, the population isn't as high as I had budgeted for the meals.
Okay. Thanks.
So let me ask this question. If TennCare has taken this position on mental health, then I assume this is statewide?
I
Or
would
not?
think so. Well,
it
all
couldn't just-
correctional facilities.
Okay, so that also will affect not only mental health, but health care. Has that affected our budget? In other words, the health care for the student, the
Detainee.
resident.
Right, yes.
Who has that adverse effect.
So the majority, and I don't even like to say this out loud because I feel like it's, karma, but the majority of our young people are handled in-house with our medical provider, RUD Medical. In the event that it's something that requires more from than RUD provides to us, it's either going to be the child's personal physician or the emergency room. The personal physician would just address that with the child's legal guardian. The emergency room we use it so rarely that they write those off. So if there's no insurance.
So even though there might be impact,
It
it
wouldn't
doesn't affect the budget.
That's correct.
How does this impact our memorandum of understanding or letter agreements with other counties?
Excellent.
The other counties, the young people, if it is beyond what RUD Medical can provide, then those counties come take the child to whichever services they want. They transport, they take it, and then if it's something where the child can return, they bring them back. So it doesn't. The short version is it doesn't affect them.
It doesn't affect this at all.
Right.
Good. So if you can make some inquiry, Lynn, I would appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I just like a better understanding of why I get the impression this kind of caught you off guard, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about why they didn't manage your expectations a little better anyway.
Okay.
Great. Any other business?
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
In the news recently, there was an escape by 3 juveniles out in Wilder.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know that occasionally things will happen here as well. We're not immune to what's going on. Is there a process where the board can be notified? I'm not saying you have to call us that night and say, by the way, Claire, this happened. But
Right.
at the next meeting, say, hey, we had an incident, somebody tried to escape, we were able to handle it.
I think I'm not going to promise, but I think I added that in the new SOP
Okay.
that y'all are in the phone call list of,
Oh, okay.
of, media type events.
Okay.
But, so absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Any other business?
Do we need to approve this?
What would be helpful if you would approve it, and I guess, I don't know if we need to authorize you to sign it, or it just goes to you and then you decide?
So, that's a good question, because I get these all the time. Ms. Cullum in my office, and I look over them and I discuss with the appropriate director the purpose of the transfer. But I don't go to, like, the workhouse, I don't go to them, the board. And that's not to say I shouldn't, but you bring up an interesting question. So I'm going to ask Nick. I said, Nick, the way the Private Act reads for how this board is to be, or governs the Juvenile Detention Center, budget requests, budget amendments that are typically signed by the mayor's office, do they need prior approval from the board?
It's a great question, so I can look at that and I can report back to you.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I just flat out don't know, Ms. Cullum. That's an excellent question.
I contacted Superintendent Cope and just asked him, I said, do you take your budget amendments to your board prior? And he said, unless it's an emergency, I do, and then they say whatever, and then.
Right.
Mayor, is that?
Yeah.
I'm a big advocate of mirroring.
No, that tells me, Nick, that tells me exactly what I need to know. So we're going to go back and revisit the budget modification if I can. And so on item 11, where we discussed the budget amendment, I would appreciate a motion and a second to authorize me to sign this budget amendment. If that's okay.
I move that you be allowed to sign this and
second.
approve it.
Okay, thank you. And we had a motion and a second. And all those in favor say aye.
And that's for the 15,145?
Yes, sir.
And that's to demonstrate on this piece of
Yes,
paper?
sir.
Okay.
And this will still go through the county?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, ma'am. It still goes
Yes.
before budget and full commission. And all those voting no, say no. The ayes have it. The budget amendment will be adopted and signed by the mayor. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Cullum, for that. That one got by me. Any other questions or comments under other business? Seeing none, this board is adjourned. Thank you.